Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kim Barrett Show. I'm your host, Kim Barrett. On today's episode, we are joined by Dustin Devries. Now, Dustin is a digital marketing expert. We chat all things websites, SEO, and maybe a cheeky New Year's resolution or two as well. Now, if you're someone who wants to grow your business, of course, this is going to be an episode you will not want to miss. And if we can help you, as always, head over to our free group, www.joinmygroup.com.au, where we have everything you need there and more. But until then, let's jump into the show. Dustin, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you making the time.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
It's great to have you. Now, I always like to start the podcast off the same way every time, which is if I met you at a party and we were chatting and I said, Dustin, what is it that you actually do? What's your go-to answer?
I manage a digital marketing company. So it's a husband-wife founded company, me and my wife. We build everything from websites to software applications, web and mobile apps, to digital marketing.
Nice. I love that. And so what got you guys first started in that? Because obviously for a lot of people, like aspects of digital marketing have been around for a long time. Some parts have only been around for a short time. What kind of grabbed your and tickled your fancy at the very beginning?
Well, I guess, I kind of had a background in software, went to school, studied in software, computer engineering, got a job in the semiconductor industry for about 10 years. While I was there, I kind of got sick of the corporate world, just wanted to move into something different. Started dabbling in affiliate marketing back in like 2006. So that was kind of my first real venture into doing anything kind of entrepreneurial, I should say. So started doing that, and then that was never really that successful for me. But it kind of allowed me to learn a lot of things about entrepreneurship and just getting off the ground with a business. And so from there, I started doing consulting services and just kind of gravitated into a point where kind of reached a critical mass with customers. We had to decide, okay, do we just start telling a lot of people no, raise our rates, or do we start expanding and start building a team? And we chose the latter. And here we are. That was back. Everyone asks when we started our company, and usually say around 2013, but it's not really a clear thing. It's kind of like doing freelancing consulting. We finally hit this critical mass point. Said, all right, let's go ahead and formalize this into a company, a bigger company, and start bringing in employees. So about 9 years now.
That's amazing. Well done. And what over that time, what have been some of the biggest shifts that you've seen happen? Because being around in the digital space that long is like centuries in normal world, I feel like, in comparison to the digital landscape, because things move so fast. What have been some of the big shifts that you've seen happen over the last couple of years?
So many. I guess I just think of a few off the top of my head. I mean, one is just, I think software development and website development has been very commoditized. There's a lot of just off-the-shelf services. You can go build your own website, which is a great, for us, kind of like, well, that's putting us out of business. Not really, because it's a great opportunity for people trying to get off the ground with a new business. I have to go drop, a ton of money into a brand new website and go build something through, say, GoDaddy's web builder or, Wix or something like that, and get a pretty decent website just to start off with. So that's one of them. On like the app side of things, obviously lots of different technologies coming down the pipe over the years. A lot of these hybrid frameworks now where back in the good old days, you had to build, an app. If you're going to build, say, a mobile app, you're building it for, one version of Android, one for iPhone. A lot of synchronization between all of that with the hybrid platforms so that you build like one code base and then deploy to multiple platforms. And it continues to evolve. Now we've got all this stuff with I forget what he calls it, Mark Zuckerberg's new thing, virtual reality stuff, right?
The metaverse, yeah.
Yeah, the metaverse, yeah. So that may be the new thing. We're going to be programming stuff in the metaverse. I don't know. We'll see.
Nice. And you mentioned there obviously the change in websites going from like having to really have a whole lot of hardcore work really going into things to get a decent website back in the day versus now you've got all the drag and drop builders and things like that. You mentioned a couple there. Even though obviously they're good and they're useful, what are some of the limitations on those versus getting if you go and build something on Wix versus getting like a proper website built? Like, what are some of the limitations that you kind of see on those like drag and drop easy to use ones?
Typically, they're going to be hosted on their platform, so you don't really have access to the underlying framework, any of the mechanics of that website. So when you start wanting to do deeper dives, starting to do integrations, especially start doing any kind of like marketing automation, you want to integrate with different CRMs and marketing automation tools. Some of that stuff can be very limiting. So that's probably the biggest piece of that, and then just the fact that you're kind of boxed into what kind of functionality they've built out. So if you ever want to color outside the line, so to speak, you're often very, very limited. But again, like I said, we have customers all the time come in and they say, I've got like $10,000 in my pocket and I'm trying to get my business off the ground. I need business cards, I need a logo, I need a website, I need to, pay for a phone number, all these different costs. It's like, okay, well, you really want to go drop like half of your budget. I mean, $5,000 is pretty cheap custom website these days. Our prices are typically north of that. So, putting a lot of your budget into a website just it doesn't make sense. And go build something put a one pager together. So it's a great option. But yeah, it's something you grow out of pretty fast as your business starts to scale, especially if you want to start doing any kind of marketing automation, anything on that front, which most businesses do, pretty quickly if they're successful.
And what about on the side of SEO and things like that? Do they have can you get as good a result on a platform like that versus something that's built custom, or is it like the custom just gives you more opportunity to really kind of enhance that?
I'll start off by saying I don't consider myself an SEO expert. I mean, I've done enough of it that maybe I could kind of say I've got, I definitely have experience in it. But, things like page speed, for example, that's something we work on with a lot of our customers. We partner with some SEO agencies, and page speed is something that's been very, very big for the last several years. And so you're very limited by what the page builder provider allows for. And also you're being hosted along with several other instances all in the same place. So, other websites sharing the same resources and all of that. So all that's going to impact page speed. And then any kind of, other kind of SEO tricks or anything you want to do, like any kind of automation of certain, I don't mean like generating keyword rich pages or anything like that. But if you want to, I was thinking about something like an apartment hunting website, where you want to do dynamic generation of maybe properties and listings of properties, group them by, like for here in the US, zip code, for example, is common grouping, or by city or by town or whatever. Those capabilities aren't going to be there. So you're going to be able to build out a lot of that kind of functionality, or you'd have to build it by hand essentially, versus being able to build something dynamic with like an app in the background, or say if it's WordPress, like a plugin in the background, managing all of this. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of limitations with that platform as you start to look at some of these other needs like SEO and digital marketing. It's going to limit you pretty quickly. And
what are some of the big, not mistakes maybe, but what are some of the things that when people come to you, you see time and time again and be like, I wish they hadn't done that, to kind of holds them back a little bit from the growth of their business when it comes to their digital marketing? Because there always seems to be a few kind of like common pitfalls that people fall into. Like, are any of those that you've noticed across the years that seem to be consistent time and time again?
Common pitfalls in regards to their website and how they're using their website for digital marketing, or
yeah, like tying into their digital marketing side.
Yeah, this is another one, kind of a lot of different ways to answer that. Since we were talking about SEO, talking about that off the top of my head, just focusing on that. I mean, the structure, the topology of your website is obviously important. So what is your navigation? What are your main links off of the site? If you've got something completely different, then trying to shoehorn that into an SEO strategy can sometimes be sort of difficult. Also, depending on what kind of technology it's built on. We're big advocates of WordPress. WordPress has its problems. It's not the perfect platform. So where people tend to run into problems with WordPress is trying to extend it too far, trying to do too much with it. But as long as you're not trying to build an app in WordPress, if you're building a fairly basic site, even an e-commerce experience, plenty of good e-commerce stores out there that are built on WordPress. But using a platform like that opens up a whole variety of options to you because of the huge amount of plugins that they have. The environment of the ecosystem, the WordPress ecosystem, is just massive. And so whatever marketing automation tool you might be using in your business, probably going to have support. There's probably going to be plugins that are native for WordPress that you can just plug in, and you can start, hooking up forms. You can start creating landing pages and hooking up forms to that. But if you're using some proprietary technology, you have someone who coded something in raw PHP for you on the side, for $100, then you're going to be, it's going to be difficult, or at least it's going to be more difficult, right?
And In the whole digital marketing space that you work in, like, is there an area for yourself where you're like, this is really kind of like my favorite area to play in, as opposed to all the rest?
One thing about digital marketing, I mean, definitely we've been doing a lot lately with PPC. I would say for us, it's one of those. It's kind of it's a thing that we decided here a few years ago. We were kind of broad. We were doing a lot in the marketing space as well as web and app services, and we decided to just narrow down and really focus on software development. But just out of necessity with our clients and some of the things that have happened in our business, we've jumped back into that marketing space. So for us, though, what we really enjoy, I love working with customers who are trying to maybe working in a competitive space. They're trying to find a way to stand out. It's something we deal with all the time, right? We build websites. I mean, it doesn't get more commoditized than that, right? So trying to find out how do you stand above all of the noise and actually do something. And tip, it's not spam people with email all day long, right? It's a whole lot more to it. So finding ways, I'm a big proponent of like the where you segment out audiences and you think about like your whole prospect pool and you think about your at the bottom of the prospect pool, you kind of have like the people who are problem unaware. And you have the people that are problem aware but haven't done anything about it. You have the people who started doing some research and the people who are ready to take action, right? And kind of those four segments, kind of common thing that people talk about in marketing. And trying to find ways, working with customers who maybe never really thought about that whole prospect pool and thought about how to bring customers up through those segments up to the point where they're ready to engage. And also like just the light bulb that goes off when we're working with customers and talking about these concepts, just explaining to them, it's not only just bringing people along to get them to the point where they're ready to buy, but you're also being able to educate and, not in a malicious way, but bias them on your unique solution, in order to sell them. And so that's something we really enjoy working with our customers on, talking about digital marketing campaigns and how they can do that. We provide, turnkey services related to that as well, but just basically teaching people about marketing processes and marketing strategies. We've been through a lot ourselves because we've done, we for a long time we didn't do a lot of marketing for ourselves. We were dependent on referrals pretty much for all of our business, and so we had to figure out how to start doing a better job with marketing. And so, using both inbound and outbound marketing strategies to grow our business, and then applying those for our customers as well. It's been a lot of fun.
Nice. I love that. And like looking forward then over like the next coming years, we're in 2022 now, things are growing. Like what do you see as some of the shifts that are happening, or is there anything specifically you're kind of like preparing your clients for going into 2022 and beyond? Is there any sort of trends you're looking to explore or anything like that?
I think the central theme right now is still COVID and people dealing with that and figuring out how do you manage through the pandemic and getting out. I think a lot of people are figuring out how to survive. Is that if you're still in business and you've been in business since 2020 when this all started, right? Then you figured out something, right? Maybe you just had enough credit cards you could charge everything to, but figuring out how to take advantage of that, figuring out when there's disruption within the world or within your industry or whatever, how can you capitalize on that? Take a negative and turn it into a positive. There's not a lot to be said about anything positive about going through any kind of pandemic or anything like that. I get that, but finding a way to because everything is shifting, finding a way to persevere through that. I think that's probably the biggest thing right now, and we're dealing with a lot of that. We have customers who are, for example, here in the U.S., charter schools, which are education for kids up to 18 years old. They're trying to figure out ways to bring in hit their enrollment goals, for example, right? It's a difficult thing to do because we have, especially here in the US, I think it's worldwide. There's a lot of, like, everyone's uncertain about what's the right thing to do in terms of, should we be in person with schools? Should we be meeting virtual? And so you have these schools that have been, thriving and doing well for like years and years, sometimes decades. All of a sudden pandemic happens and the community they serve is split because half the parents want their kids learning virtually, and the other half want them in person. So how do you deal with that? And so all of a sudden their enrollment lists are getting cut in half in some cases, and they're trying to figure out how to persevere through that. So being able to find a way to bring in more traffic and stuff like that, I think that's been a big challenge for them. And that's, across multiple industries. Same thing with the restaurant business. I mean, you can name any industry probably and see where this is happening. Also supply chain issues, right? That's been a big issue here for us. And so how do we deal with that? And how do you manage that? How do you is there a way to find some kind of leverage to take advantage of that situation? I don't mean in a malicious way again. It's more, you want to do things in the right way, but how can you take a bad thing and turn it into an opportunity?
I think that's huge. As you say, over the last couple of years for anyone, it's like, if you've survived, first of all, well done. And then it's like, you've got to look at the avenues, as you said, and it's not taking advantage of it, but how can you flip that around and make sure that, there's positives at the end of it. I know, so many people that have gone and added on a digital arm to it, where it's like, oh, cool, we now do digital personal training, or we do virtual yoga or virtual Pilates or whatnot, or like delivery for a lot of, especially here in Australia, a lot of the cafes and restaurants all turn to like specialty delivery services and specialty meal services and things like that to kind of deal with it, because you have to really. It's unfortunate. It's a tough time at the moment, but I think for most people, it's like, if they make it through this, it's probably going to be one of the hardest things unless there's another big war or something like that. It's probably the hardest thing our generation is going to have to deal with, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I know everyone's kind of fatigued on it. Talking about the COVID pandemic, it's like, what a what a boring topic we talk about all the time. But I mean, it's true though. Like, finding a way to capitalize on that and see what you can take advantage of. And yeah, I mean, it's created, even from day to day, the standards, either from the government or from the community, whatever the case may be, are constantly changing. So how do you evolve with that? And so it's tough. But I think also, I always think too about, when times are good, people thrive, and the temptation is to try to grow as fast as you can and capitalize on that. Sometimes there's some value in showing some restraint when things are really thriving. Take advantage of it, of course, but build yourself up in a way that you can prepare for something like what we're dealing with now. And that's what I try to think about, is how do I take advantage of this, but then also how do I continue to build systems and processes within my business so that when the next thing happens, because there'll probably be something else somewhere down the road. Like you said, this may be the biggest thing our generation deals with, but probably not. I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff in the world. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, very true. And now, Dustin, as we're getting towards the end of our time here together, I always like to ask a semi-final question, which is, what's the question which I haven't asked you that I should have?
Question you should have asked. New Year's resolutions. I don't know. I mentioned that because what's been hot, big topic for me as of late is journaling. I decided to start journaling. So I guess I would, I'll say, Dustin, what are your New Year's resolutions? Well, one of them is journaling. And I've started doing that. I've realized there's like this whole like underworld of people that are into journaling and making all these crazy, almost like scrapbooks kind of things. And I'm not doing anything crazy like that, but just using that as another avenue to put thoughts down on paper. And what I like about it is that it's very static. So you write it down and it's stuck there. It's not like, I have my electronic virtual to-do list that I keep track. I use Trello for a lot of my tasks of managing it, but that's constantly changing. Right, the way it looks in the morning is going to be completely different than how it looks at night. But I write it down on paper, it's stuck there. I can go back and look at it a week later or a month later, and I can see exactly what was going on. I can see patterns, I can see trends. So it's a new thing that I'm doing, and I think it's helping with my personal growth. It's also holding me accountable for things I want to do within my business. I think it's been really powerful. So that's my big New Year's resolution. I don't know when this is airing, but that's my New Year's resolution.
Perfect. No, I love that. And then, Dustin, if people have listened to this and they've said, look, I like what I've heard from Dustin and want to know more about what he does, where's the best place for people to connect with you online?
Best way to find me is on caffeineinteractive.com. That's just it's two words, but no hyphen or anything else, caffeineinteractive.com. You can email me, Dustin at caffeineinteractive.com. Have links to all our social media on there. That's probably the easiest way to find me and get in touch with me.
Beautiful. So, guys, wherever you're listening to this, watching this, check the show notes above or below. We'll have all the links to Dustin there. And Dustin, again, I really appreciate you making the time to join us today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, kid. This was fun.
Thanks. We'll speak to you soon.
All right, take care.